Welcome to Food for Thought. I am your host, your guy, DeVon Franklin, and I'm excited today because I have one of my brothers coming by. Now listen, in life, I know we have friends and best friends, but if you can find a brother, then you have found everything. And I found a brother. People say we look alike, okay? People say that we have the same mother or father. To our knowledge, we don't. But he is my brother nonetheless. His name is Trai Byers. Y'all know Trai, and he's coming through. So before he comes through, what I'm gonna make is my Aunt Enis's famous lemon cake. Now, Aunt Enis, I love her. She is 86 years old. And whenever I ask her to make this cake for me, she says, okay. Now, she puts so many different things in it, but the one thing that I don't have that she puts in it is her love. So I'm gonna do my best to do my interpretation of Aunt Enis's famous lemon cake. And I pray that I get it right. So we're just gonna see what happens. But what I will tell you is whether I get this right or not, the conversation with me and Trai is gonna be on point. I can guarantee that. So let's see if we can't, get this thing situated here. Because Aunt Enis is not gonna be happy if I mess up her cake. And this is her recipe. She puts 4 eggs. That means this thing gonna hold together. For me, when I make a cake, I like to over whip it, as some would say. Because what happens is when you whip it a lot, it makes the cake lighter and fluffier. And I don't like a dense cake. I like the cake to feel like it's air. So the more you beat it, the more it's gonna be light and fluffy. Now, one of the secret, or maybe not so secret, ingredients in Aunt Enis's lemon cake is lemon pudding. Yeah. Now that is what makes it taste like fresh lemons right off of the tree. You always got to have your secret ingredient. That's the same thing for life. You can't tell everybody your secrets. You can't tell everybody what you're doing and how you're doing it. Sometimes you just got to do it. And everybody wants to know, let them keep asking, but you ain't got to tell them everything you do. That's one of the things for Food for Thought. We're not just going to give you recipes that'll make you taste good. We're going to give you recipes for your life to create the success that you were already, designed to be. And this little fresh lemon, we squeeze that in here. Again, it's always about the zest and the zeal. Just like life, you got to have a zest and zeal for life. Every day above the ground is a great day. Every day above the ground is a great day. When you wake up, you got to say, this is the day the Lord has made. I will rejoice and be glad in it. And then you start putting the ingredients together for a great day. And that's what I'm doing for this cake. I need your prayers, okay? I need your intercession, all right? I want this cake to be right, okay? I don't want, I want my brother thinking I don't know what I'm doing, all right? Because I do. This ain't just for show. I really do bake, y'all. This is for real. This is absolutely for real. When I thought about the idea of doing this show, I really wanted to bring people on that I really know and that I have relationships with and that I want you to get to know better. The same way I want you to learn these recipes, I want you to understand the recipe required to live a dynamic life. So I'm bringing Trai today. I'm making this lemon cake. I hope Aunt Enis is proud of me. I pray, Aunt Enis, listen, I don't want to embarrass you, Auntie, but I'm going to do my best to do as well as you do for me. So y'all, here we go. Let's get into it. What's up, man?
Hey, brother.
How you doing, man?
Bless my man. How
Thanks
you
for coming through. Feeling good. Feeling good, man. Now, listen, this is my version of Aunt Enis's famous lemon cake.
Auntie's cake.
Now, I'm not going to tell you that this is going to be at her level because Aunt Enis puts love in it and a secret ingredient that she don't tell us.
I understand.
So, we're going to do the best.
Yes, sir.
And if you love it, great. And if you don't, I don't want to know about it.
I'm sure I'm going to love it.
All right, man. There you go.
Thank you, sir.
All right, bro. I'm coming. I got you. Let me just do this. Please.
Sure. Yes, sir.
Man, okay. Let's see what we're working with here.
All right.
Dude, it's all right.
Yeah.
it'll do, but I need Aunt Enis to give me a secret ingredient.
Well, obviously there's love in here. I'm tasting the flavors. I'm tasting the levels, of your chefdom. The baker. My baker's hat's off to you.
Man, listen.
Good stuff, man.
Thank you, man, and thanks for coming through. Oh. I mean, this is something that I actually have been wanting to do for a while. Trying to bring a different way to have conversations, and what better way than to be in the kitchen?
Oh yeah. Man.
Where we're like making recipes, but then sitting down, talking about the recipe for success as it relates to life.
Yeah, brother. Yeah, absolutely.
So, man, I started this. The genesis of it was back during the pandemic. I was doing a Bible study. Mm-hmm. And while I was doing a Bible study, I was baking a cake.
Oh.
Yeah. So literally I was talking about, the eggs and the ingredients.
That's really cool. That's
man. Yeah. Because, in the pandemic, we were all trying to figure out ways to do things that were, virtual, but still connected.
And staying creative.
Yeah. So I was there, man, doing that. And then it was like, oh, wait a minute. What about doing a show like this?
Yeah.
So it's a blessing,
It's a brother, 100%. Yeah. And, you got the word, man. So, I know it's super deep. It was super deep then. I'm sure it's super deep now.
Yeah, man. Well, okay,
man.
Bro. I know you. Okay.
Yes.
We've been brothers for a while.
I see where it's going.
Many say we are actually brothers. And they're shocked when they find out that we're not.
We're two different
We're
people.
Two different people.
Two different people.
But I know the real Trai Byers. True. But I don't think people know the real Trai Byers. One, is that intentional? Uh-huh. And two, who's the real Trai Byers?
It is intentional. I'm just, I'm a private person, but at the same time, professionally speaking, I'm an actor. And the less you know about me, and this is just my own little philosophy, the more you believe the characters that I play. The real Trai Byers, as a Trai Byers, I'm a brother from Kansas City, man.
Yeah.
Likes football and loves the Lord, barbecue, I'm going to talk trash, play spades. Just in general, man, I'm just a dude, man.
Yeah.
Just a guy.
Yeah, the spades playing. We got
You know that.
We got to get revenge on your mom and Grace. Seriously, man. How in the world do we let them leave?
I don't understand.
Like that.
Bro. Because first of all, there's wick in the cards. You know what I mean? It's not always fair.
What is wick?
Some mystical manipulation that these women put on these cards, man. And only they know how to do it.
So we can't put wick on the card.
Spades is a game of chance. That's what I say. It's a game of chance, and at the end of the day, if you don't got the cards, you just don't got the cards. It's a bad night, and if you and you can not get the cards all night long, making it an even worse night.
Yeah, man. What's interesting, in terms of spades, and this, is something that you and I have dealt with a lot, which is, we started playing spades when I was married. Mm-hmm. And that's how we, that's how we all came to know each other.
Yeah.
Me and Megan and you and Grace and having those nights in New York, man, where it was just like, the battle of the sexes.
It was give and take, brother.
It was give and take, man.
Yeah.
And, upon my divorce, you were such an instrumental figure for me.
Yeah, brother.
And I'll never forget when you called me and was like, hey, man, we're going to Costa Rica.
We're going to Costa Rica. I'll never forget when you jumped off that cliff, brother.
Right.
I was supposed to go first.
Yes.
But I couldn't, the love-hate relationship with the heights, man. It's intriguing, but I've never frozen before. Do you know what I mean? And my big bro comes in and says, get out the way.
I got this. But there was a lot that happened that led up to having that courage.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And so my question for you is, what was going on in your mind? Because, as brothers, sometimes as brothers, you're just like, hey, are you good? You're good. Great. Cool. But you went a step further where you were like, okay, no, we're going to go out of the country. What was going on in your mind? How were you processing being there for me? And how did you know I even needed to do something like that?
Some things just come to you. That's all God. We connect on that. We connected on that initially.
Yeah.
I think when we first met, and, that bond, the bond of brothers, I think can only be strengthened to the level that it is with you and I, through God being in the center of it, as iron sharpens iron, so one man sharpens another. Amen. But again, that's the Lord's word.
Yeah.
And it's just true. And I just felt it, man. And you're one of my best friends, brother.
Yeah,
so,
likewise.
going through the, watching you go through the process and then going through the process as a friend of yours, as close as we are. How could I not? It was like second nature. Like, how's DeVon doing? You're in my prayers. You're in my conversations. I'm gonna check in on you. To the point to where it's a bit of a nuisance because just want you to understand that there's love for you in this community, and very strong love, and you know, an understanding of that life happens.
Yeah.
And there's life beyond moments, you know, where you continue to grow through, not just go through. And I was just excited about, you know, having the conversations with you. I was excited about what, you know, the journey would do with you, although I also, you know, mourned with you and felt, you know, with you in during the process. So
Definitely.
I don't know, it just he hit me, man. Like, hey, man, go to Costa Rica with your brother. Let's go. You know, I had never been to Costa Rica, you know. It's tropical and look like, you know what I mean? Like, get away from this land and see what's what, man. And we have time, brother.
Man, nah, it was unbelievable. And going to the part you were talking about, you know, when we were hiking and up on, you know, that, I don't even know how high in the air we were. I mean, that ledge was just, was crazy.
It was ridiculous.
And I'm gonna be honest with you, I wasn't gonna do it. I was like, bro, my bro is going first. Cool, you go.
Yeah.
I ain't doing this, okay?
And I had every intention of doing it.
I know.
Like, you know?
And then when you were like, no, I can't do it, I said, wait, hold on, man. If you can't do it, okay, nah, I said, no, we not gonna go out like this.
Yeah, we can't climb back down the ladder. There's only one way down.
That's right. Now, but do you remember what the guide said? How do you deal with conflict? You don't like what she's saying.
I go to the other room, man, and I watch The Simpsons.
You were like, no, I can't do it. I said, wait, hold on, man. If you can't do it, okay, nah. I said, no, we not gonna go out like this.
Yeah, we can't climb back down the ladder. There's only one way down.
That's right. Now, but do you remember what the guide said? And this is what got me to be able to jump off the ledge.
Remind me.
He said, don't look down, look
right.
ahead.
Ah, that's good.
Because when you look down,
good.
you're gonna be overwhelmed. But if you look ahead, all you gotta do is jump and your view's the same. I said, wow. And that was such a metaphor for me in that moment.
Yeah.
You know, don't look down. Don't look back at what didn't work. Just look ahead. And so when I heard him say that, that's what gave me the courage to jump.
Yeah.
And to jump. And then I was like, wait a minute. Woo. That was the biggest jump I've ever done in life.
Yeah, man.
You know, and then what did you do?
I looked down. And I looked down again, like, oh my goodness. So he did it, I gotta do it. My brother did it, he survived. But it gave me courage, you know what I mean? And I think that's the beauty of you in my life and in so many people, you know, I'm sure so many people who are directly, you know, in that space with you and even indirectly in that space with you, brother, that, you know, some people are here to blaze a path for other people to see and be encouraged by. And I think you're one of those people, man.
Thank you, man.
Not to make this a like To Kill a Mockingbird, you know what I mean, type of, you know, moment, but man, you know,
man.
It's a blessing. I appreciate you and your courage, man, to live life.
Thank you, man. I mean, I sincerely don't think I could have got through it, man. I mean, so, you know, I appreciate it because that was the most difficult experience in life.
You have to, now, the thing that I remember.
What's that?
Whitewater rafting.
Oh, right. Oh,
we hit one of those rapids. 1 minute you're there, the next minute.
But next thing I know, you and the guide.
Right out.
That again, like, man, there's so many metaphors here. First of all, what I loved about that whitewater rafting is that the guide, I don't know if you remember this, but he was always saying, okay, I'm going to tell you when to row.
Yeah.
Right. And so we'd be going through the rapid and it would look like we're about to hit a rapid and he would say, stop. Yeah. Row, stop. And I was like, this is how I want my relationship with God to be, where I'm listening. Right? Even though it looks like we're about to hit something, stop. Yeah. Let the current take you. And so in that moment, when we actually hit that rock, I flew out. Yeah. It felt like I was literally like in this watery, you know, like coughing almost. And next thing I know,
2 seconds.
You and the guy were right there. Yeah. And where does this come from? Like, is this how you are with everybody you meet? Like, how are you this guy that always seems to be there for people in times of need?
You know, I'm the oldest of 6. So I know what it means to be tight-knit. I know what it means to, you know, be loyal. I know what it means to be isolated as well. My dad was in the military, so my family was always traveling. And then he went to telecommunications and we traveled even more. So, you know, we were always, you know, from one place to another, but we always had each other. And I think that's where it got, you know, fortified that, you know, bonds are only as strong as you make them. And when you invest in them, you know, with all that you are, generally you get that back.
And growing up, you know, what was kind of the thing that you were most concerned about? You know, if you're the oldest of 6, your father's in the military, you all are moving around. Did you feel a responsibility to kind of, lead the family?
Yeah.
What was your greatest concern growing up?
I mean, I wanted to survive. And, of course I felt responsible for, I got, 5 people underneath me that are looking to me as a big brother, or of sorts, or whatever you want to call it. I can't speak for them, but I'm thinking about, surviving, going from one place to the next, modeling an example of strength as best I can to, be there. And especially as we got older and we were more cognizant of like, okay, we're moving around. What's this doing to my baby brother? What's this doing to my baby sister? And, being able to have those conversations with them and then have them see us be, active and social, but bring that, sociability home as well and not leave them out. You know what I mean?
And do you feel like, your success, in the business and all that you accomplished so far, that you've kind of, in a macro sense, made good on that concern for survival as it relates to your family?
I think so. I mean, we're all nomads, you know what I mean?
Okay.
By nature, because of the movement. And, this is the job, that I do is, a proper fit, I think, with regard to being able to go different places and do different things. They, I think I'm the one that moves around the most. Me and Brandy, me and B are the only ones that kind of like, skip and hop, but, and everybody else is basically back in Kansas City. But I don't know. I think so. I like to think that, there's some peace there, and that, people settled in their own way, with that example and other examples that they needed to be the people that they are, man.
You talk about being married for 7 years.
Yeah.
There is this idea, the 7-year itch, where things start to, fray. You bring a child into the So how do you deal with your stuff? How do you deal with conflict?
Yeah.
If she has a truth and you have a truth, how do you express that truth? Yeah. Does she hear that truth? When she has a truth, do you hear that truth? Like, how do you navigate that?
The truth.
Right,
Yeah,
exactly.
Again, we have our stuff, our disagreements based on not what we call truth, but opinion. We come to one another with an opinion and we deliver it as such. And with that, for us, it keeps our listening ears open. Like it doesn't necessarily become like what is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. It becomes what is my partner thinking and feeling and sensing, whether it's about, politics or current events or me or, or herself or family, whatever it is. It becomes about putting on a listening ear, and it helps when you feel like, okay, we're finding a collective space to be able to coexist with what makes you unique and what makes me unique, which is our opinion, the way we see things. And hopefully, that becomes, if we're going to use truth, that becomes our truth. Where your opinion and my opinion, meet, where they differ, and how we're able to communicate those differences peacefully, but also in a way that gives you the space to be who you are and be heard, and vice versa.
But what happens in those times when you don't want to be peaceful? Because you don't like what she's saying.
I go to the other room, man, and I watch The Simpsons, and she stays in her room. She watches Golden Girls, and then we meet up. We have our code word. You know what I mean? I won't say what it is.
Okay, fair enough.
Between us.
Yep.
But we will say, let's revisit this. It has. It's gotten hot. Whereas you're saying what you're saying. I'm saying what I'm saying. There's a lot of interruptions and not a lot of listening. On both parts, which is for both of us, like, hey, everybody wants to be heard and nobody wants to be cut off as though like, hey, what I'm saying doesn't matter, And even that is not necessarily something that's done on purpose, more than like, no, I have something to say. I don't want to forget it. We're all 40 and older now. So like, but at the same time, it's just like, it's just an impulse to, want to be, seen, heard, and to be able to express fully. That's a big thing I hear in my marriage a lot. Like, I just want to express this to you, and I get that, and sometimes, to your point, when you're hot, it's hard to allow the expression to reveal itself in a manner that goes uninterrupted. Right,
because
when you start to see red, wait a minute, but we do a really good job at stepping away. And sometimes it's longer than we expect. Ultimately, God is for us anyway. I know we always feel God using it to get something out. And by the time we're at the end of whatever that conflict is, we feel so much stronger and bonded together, in a way that feels so much more complete than when we started.
Got it. Okay. So it's about giving space at times.
I mean, giving space.
Hearing, but then like, hey, you know what? We're going to give each other the space and the grace to reapproach this.
And then sometimes it's like, no space.
We're going to talk about it right now.
Talk about this right now. Let's get this out. But even then, it's like, I never, you don't have to remind the person that you love, that loves you, hey, remember that you love me.
Right.
remember that this is a marriage and that we love each other. That's one thing I think that we're always cognizant of. She says to me, Trai, you get so mad at me. I'm like, no, I don't ever remember being mad at you. I do remember being frustrated, you know what I mean? And even that, like the ability to communicate, honestly, in a word that isn't necessarily, thought of as overly positive, but it's contemplative and it gives us a space, to grow. I've been frustrated with you. You've been frustrated with me. But through our frustrations, we're always able to come together, for the love of each other, in the love of Christ. And, we learn something new about each other.
Now, here, speaking of learning something new.
Yeah.
In this world, right? Of male energy, female energy, you are married for 7 years in a dynamic, amazing marriage. How is there a dynamic where you're like, okay, this is what it means to be a man, and this is what my marriage requires of me as it relates to my manhood?
I wrestle that. I don't, I wrestle with that. I came up with I grew up in a household full of, women.
Me too.
And I, they did an amazing job. The women in my life are remarkable women, whom I owe a great debt to. Grateful to God. In addition to that, there was that idea of like, what is a man? That, I had to grapple with it. I still grapple. Even now as a father, I'm like, well, what am I?
And as we, and as Megan and I, parted, that did happen with other couples. Other couples that I was close to and other, men in those couples that I would have considered my brother. We get divorced, I don't hear from them.
There's that idea of like, what is a man? That, I had to grapple with it. I still grapple. Even now as a father, I'm like, well, what am I? What am I actually, even the idea of a good man. What does it take to be a good man? Versus, and if being a good man is not being a heard man, then I don't want to be a good man. Just hear what I have to say. Or, give me the space to be able to express, and yeah, I can't, it's hard to answer that question because it's still something that, is being revealed to me by God. God is giving me my manhood. And as it relates to my marriage, obviously there are clear opposites, that we bring into the relationship that strengthen it, that only she can bring and only I can bring. That doesn't necessarily, for me, make me a man and make her a woman more than it makes us, willing participants in God's plan for our love. It's, what is it to be a man? I think, I'm looking at the character traits that God has given me, looking at the spiritual gifts that he lays out and looking at what pleases, the Father. And when I do my best to add that to not only the titles of my life, but the behavior of my life, I find that I have better relationships with everybody in a manner that makes me feel authentic.
Right. What are some of the things that you do that tick her off?
A lot of things, I'm sure. The interruptions, sometimes I get a little bit, hasty, but I think one of the bigger things is, it's so hard to talk about yourself in this way. No. I will, on occasion, forget what I said. And then I'll say something as though I remember what I said. And she has, the truth of what it was that I just said.
Right.
And I'm just trying to like skate around it and make an argument around it. And I realize, wow, I don't remember if I said it or not. But sometimes I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna die on this ground. I said this, and it really, it sounds funny.
Yeah.
But you don't like that.
Oh, she like no, because I know what you said.
100%.
I took a note. I wrote it down. I remember
Maybe
what
you're
you said.
forgetting, but you know what I mean. And then
then you're like, okay, baby.
No. Sometimes I'm like a dog with a bone, man. Like nah. But I'm getting better.
Man.
It's pride.
I'm gonna have to bring Grace on here and ask her.
Listen, she might tell you something different, but I'm sure that's it. You tell her that, she's gonna be like, oh yeah. He does that. Right. He thinks he remembers.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So why don't you tell me, like, asking these questions.
Sure. Yeah, man.
Relationship, but you've had a front row seat as well.
Yeah.
As I've had a front row seat. So having gone through the divorce and being newly single and the experiences in life that you have just in general, when you look at this marriage and you see how we're working and some of the things we're talking about. She cooks, for me. I always got a meal,
man.
Every time
I
come
like
cleaning stuff, like doing, not necessarily being a housewife, but being my wife in a way that you see is like, wow, this just adds so much. How does that make you, being newly single and having had your experience? How does that make you feel being in the presence of that?
Okay, a couple things.
Sure.
It's like, okay, so before. Just like rewind the tape to when I was married and we were hanging, like truly, like the times the four of us would hang, some of the best times of life.
Yeah.
I mean, truly.
We had ball, man.
We just had a ball.
Yeah, we're tearing them up in spades, man.
we tearing them up
always
in
winning
spades, man. We went to Jamaica.
Jamaica was great.
We just have always had a good time.
Mm-hmm.
So, as things started to, fall apart, and I remember, calling you in our conversations and even without asking me, the type of friend you are, you went to her and said, hey, let me talk with you, and what can be done? Not even so much how you can help, but it's like, hey, we don't want this to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And you taking the initiative to have the conversations and what you did for me and all of that. So coming out of it, because we were at that point in time when, it was probably the point of no return.
Yeah.
And so, I did have, concerns like, okay, I'm coming out of this marriage. I've only got a chance to know Grace and Trai through the lens of the marriage.
Yeah.
And in marriages, friendships with other couples, become disrupted at times.
Sure.
And as we, and as Megan and I, parted, that did happen with other couples. Other couples that I was close to and other, men in those couples that I would have considered my brother. We get divorced, I don't hear from them. You know what I mean?
True.
Like, they'll say, hey, here and there, but in terms of like being my brother and being there for me, they disappeared. And to this day, with some of them, that really hurt me.
Sure.
So, as we begin to rebuild, I would say post-divorce, our dynamic and friendship and with you and with Grace, it wasn't hard because you all made it easy.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
it wasn't, I didn't feel awkward. I felt accepted.
Oh, yeah.
So I would come by the house and you all would always accept me and, okay, let's talk about this. And how are you feeling about that and navigating this? And so you all created an environment for almost like therapy for me. So I had a place where I could, sort out these things. And then as I've been dating, it's like, man, y'all my watchdogs. You be like, no.
Listen, you shall not pass.
Right. And that has been so helpful
Yeah.
because in dating, it's like you have blinders on. You can't see what you can't see. And so those blind spots, I feel like I have you and Grace in my blind spot. And you're able to say, hey, DeVon, look, it's your decision. What do you always say to me? Hey, if you like it, I love it.
You like it, I love it.
So I appreciate that. So you always are, affirming, hey, it's your choice to who you want to end up with again.
Yes, sir.
Here's some food for thought. And you and Grace always give me that food for thought. Here's what you should look at.
I love that. Yeah.
Here's what to consider.
Yeah.
I don't know about this. And even other times saying, hey, D, this is not for you, or this person is not the right fit. And so I appreciate all that. So when I see you and Grace together and I'm over the house, no, it doesn't make me sad. You know, it brings me hope.
I love it.
I say, wow, okay, my brother and my sister, they're going through everything and thriving and building a family and building a life. And I aspire to do that again, you know, and do it, you know, in a unique way and do it in a way that's the truest way.
And you will.
So, you know, that's my answer.
I love that. I love that.
Man, love you, man. Appreciate you, man.
Yes,
seriously.
Absolutely.
I mean, I will say it as much as I can say it. I don't think I could have made it through without you. I'm dead, bro. I'm dead serious. That's not even trying to make you feel. That's just the reality.
Sure.
Because it was such a difficult period of time and a dark period of time.
Yeah.
But to know, like, man, I could reach out and you were there. And then even as I'm dating, man, I'd be talking your ear off.
I love it, but you're there in kind, man. You know, the same thing when we're talking about, even, you know, with the, you know, the career stuff, and, you know, it's going to be what it's going to be. Life is what it is. But again, as iron sharpens iron, so one man sharpens another. And it's just great to have people that are there that, you know, that care, that see you versus see your circumstances. You know what I mean? That see that heart, and it's like, you know, no, there's more there. And I want to be involved in, you know, involved in loving that heart and helping to cultivate space, you know, for that art and that heart, pardon me. You know, it's really been instrumental to have you in my life as well, brother. So, you know, you're there for me, I'm there for you. It is what it is.
It's a two-way street.
That's what it is. It's what it's going to be.
As I end every episode of Food for Thought, you know, I'm reminded that, you know, when I was growing up, my grandmother would always, you know, make whatever dessert she's making or whatever dish, and she would pray and put it in the oven.
Oh, I love that.
What do you need prayer for right now?
I'm on a journey with the Lord where I'd like to hear as clearly as I did before.
Yeah.
I'm you know, I'm an open vessel right now, doing a few different things, but the hearing is just something that I'm really, it's at the forefront of my mind. I'll say that. So hearing what the Lord has to say. And I guess, you know, I mean, when I hear, you know, I can move. And sometimes in that desert experience, you know, there's so many things happening. It feels like God isn't necessarily talking, but it's not that he's not talking. It's just that so many things are distracting you.
Yeah.
And as I'm moving things out of the way, you know, just to help of moving even more of those, you know, things, the mess of the mind, just to make space for his voice to know what is the next thing that you have for me, no matter what it is, even if it's not, you know, something that I've been thinking about, you know, just wanting to be aligned with God in the best way that I can think of at this moment is to hear him.
All right, let's do it.
Yes, sir.
Dear Heavenly Father, we pray right now, dear God, for your son, Trai, dear Lord. Before the foundation of the earth, you knew that this was the moment that he needed to be here.
Yes,
you put ideas, dreams, visions within him, dear God. You put him on a path that others would have turned away from. But because of who he is staying committed and moving forward. I pray, dear God, that as he moves forward, that you would speak louder and clearer to him than you ever have in the course of his life so far. And I pray that his ears would be cleared out to hear what it is you're going to say. And I pray that he would not worry about when you're going to speak, but he would anticipate that you will speak. I pray that you'll speak to the deepest part of him that needs to hear directly from you as to where he should go and what he should do. And I pray that he will prepare his heart, his mind, and his spirit to receive your divine instruction. And after he receives it, I pray that he would have the faith and the courage to do it.
Yes.
Bless his home. Bless his wife. Bless his son.
Yes.
Be with him, dear God, in everything that he touches. And I pray that all that he's poured out, you would pour back into him. This is our prayer. In the name of Jesus, we pray. Amen.
Amen. Amen. My brother.
My brother.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it, man. Love you, brother.
Thanks for coming through. Love you
sir.
back.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, man.
Let me get back to this.
Here's some food for thought. I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't think I did Aunt Enis's lemon cake justice. Yeah, this isn't quite how it normally tastes. But here's the thing. Here is what you gotta know. So often in life, when we wanna do things perfectly, we don't do things at all. And if I was so worried about this coming out perfect that I wouldn't even admit to you that it's not, then maybe I'm not really living life. Because life is to be lived and to be experienced. And there are going to be some things you're going to try that will not work out the way you intended, but you still learn something in the process. Don't be afraid to learn, to live, to explore. That's one of the things I loved about the conversation with me and Trai was about exploration, about being brothers, and about learning how to live this thing called life. When we went to that ledge in Costa Rica, I was afraid. I didn't want to jump into the water below, but something said, if you don't do it, you're going to regret it. So there I was. I jumped off the ledge and it wasn't perfect. It wasn't pretty, but I did it anyway. This is food for thought today. Do it anyway. People may look at you and they may laugh at you and you may not even do it the way you'd like to do it. You may fail. It doesn't matter. Do it anyway. The experience is tied up in the willingness to do it and to try. And when you do that, whether it works out successfully or not, it's always going to be a success. Why? Because you're going to learn something about you. So don't be afraid to just do it anyway. Get the vanity out of your victory. All right, y'all. I love you. There's nothing you can do about it.